primary ignition.
This is Star Wars.
Look out!
Core World News.
You may fire when ready.
From the bright center of the galaxy, I'm Grex, conducting of the Core World News. Your holiday news service providing in-depth coverage for the latest stories from around the galaxy. Now the news segment rundown for June 15th, 2022. Old Ben's Hermit Heart. Now here's Ben Grant Adam to break down part 5 of Obi Wan Kenobi.
All right, thank you very much, Grex. Welcome to another week of Core World News. It feels like a month since the last time we podcasted, because I think I was just so excited for this episode.
So,
grateful
quick question.
Also, yes, sure.
I'm going to jump in right now. Grex said we're here to break down the episode.
Sure.
We did that last week, didn't we? And the week before that. So can we just have the episode, the podcast now? Did we already talk about it?
Red at some point, but we got a real nice red on red lightsaber fight that I thought was fantastic.
Yeah. Listen, when you throw enough lightsabers at the wall, you're gonna hit it eventually. But there were a lot of these things that we wanted to see, that we thought we'd see, that we've talked about. In the past.
Execution was superb. Like, it fulfilled all my fantasies. I loved this episode. I thought it was just super fun, like just pulpy, really fun action, force action that I thought was so cool. We'll get into that. That's like the later half of the episode, but such cool action.
Yeah.
Grant, you were saying you wept when you were watching this episode a couple times off air. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to lose
multiple times, dude. When we'll get into it. I mean, when we lose Tala and we get Obi-Wan just screaming, shrilling like Tala at the top of his lungs. Yeah, and she goes down like that. When Ned B goes, I was like, this is a tough scene. And her monologue before that, and again, Moses Ingram and Indira Varma, I think, are just some of the best actors to ever grace a Star Wars story, and just both of them have wild monologues in this episode, and they're beautifully the writing in this episode, full circle writing of Anakin and Obi-Wan's sort of history and that tragedy of Anakin's kind of hubris and aggression and arrogance, and what that resulted in is tough. It's just a tough story,
right? I have some So, all right, if we want to skip around this episode, I say it's open season on skipping around this episode, because what we have here are two stories unfolding simultaneously. We have the flashback scene. So we have this one duel, this practice duel in Coruscant between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Their hairstyles are from Attack of the Clones era.
Right. This was wild, guys. But when it pedestals down and it's like Anakin for like Attack of the Clones era Padawan Anakin.
Yeah.
I lost it because I love that look. That's a great look for Hayden. Like, I really like that look. It's the
a lot
Padawan
of nostalgia.
Look. He nailed the Padawan look too, because that's a tough look with the braid. Yeah. Like, that's he somehow it looks great. And he looks great as that era Anakin.
He does. It is pretty obvious that it's present day Anakin and present day Ewan McGregor.
But I think it makes him look more like Sebastian Shaw almost. Like it adds a nice, like, I don't know, it adds like a complexity to him that like kind of can like blend with the original trilogy, which is fun.
And I have to say, like, I love the work they're doing with like de-aging Luke Skywalker. I think it looks great. I still bump up against the de-aging stuff, even the Marvel stuff. Like, I just start looking at mouths and eyes, and it kind of drives me a bit nuts. And it's like the opposite of why I don't understand music. Like, I love music because it's a magic trick to me, because I don't understand how music works, and I refuse to learn. And this is the opposite, where I know how it works. So I'm just, every time it's like a magic trick where I'm looking for the cracks in this. And so I'm like, I'd rather have a 40-year-old with like maybe slight smoothing and like some pancake makeup on him. I felt in it more, even though I could see him being.
He looks so 20. Good when the lightsabers are clashing. It just brought me right back to
Like, and it is sort of it's a choice, right? Like, we got a slightly different looking Anakin in the Clone Wars. We got a slightly different Anakin in George Lucas's feature films, and we get a slightly different looking Anakin in this series. I mean, it just kind of makes sense from a certain point of view.
But this is what I've always wanted, guys. This is lightsabers clashing and philosophy being exchanged. This is my favorite aspect, pillar of Star Wars, which is I guess the character development through the sort of like, sword fight. I love that. That's just so cool. Very Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Yes, you've been talking about this for the past few weeks, Grant, and I never really noticed it, but I was like, that's it. Like one-on-one. Yeah. Talking lore.
Standard rotations.
Yeah. Many rotations. And so, but I thought it was very cool because this duel is a metaphor for the game that Vader and Obi-Wan are having during this, real-time episode.
Right.
There's an accusation put a tinfoil hat?
There's a beautiful full circle. I just want to point out that beautiful full circle sort of dialogue that Joby Harold has written into the episode, and Andrew Stanton has written. They've written it into the episode, which is at the beginning, Obi-Wan is sort of accusing Anakin that he's blind. His aggressions made him blind. At the very end of the episode, Vader has this line where he's like, "Did you not think I would see this coming?" Like it's like he's just kind of like he's held on to these failed learnings, and he's failed to evolve, and he's held on to it. He's this bitter resentment. He's dark obsession to outwit and basically, I guess, have the advantage fighting Obi-Wan and
and then he sort of tools on his apprentice in the same way that Obi-Wan tooled on him. Kind of in that one.
The script is tight and it's beautiful in this episode. This is a great script. I think this is the best script of the series so far.
Okay, now can I put on my tinfoil hat?
Go for it.
Please.
Okay. Did this duel happen? Or was it in their minds within the Force?
I think it definitely happened.
Yeah, I assumed it happened, but I like your.
But did it happen in their mind? Like
this is Anakin's memory, is how I read that whole thing. Was Anakin sort of thing.
But there are scenes so it flashes to Vader, which is so cool to have like your on Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, and then it flashes to Vader like in the coolest position on the deck of the Star Destroyer.
The angles were gorgeous on Vader. His armor was looking polished.
Yes.
I noticed that. I was like, there's like a Last Jedi level polish to his armor in this episode.
And Vader staring at hyperspace from the deck of a Star Destroyer is iconic. And you're always like, what's he thinking about? Like something awesome. And we actually get behind the visor to see sort of like what one of the things he's been thinking about in that position. Okay, it was a silly sidetrack thing, but I don't know. Just like there's a world where it was like they just had the battle in their mind. So sometimes they do flash to Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan's thinking about it because he's using what he learned from the same battle.
I need to rewatch that because I'm interested in that sort of how they're connected, if there's sort of dyad energy between those two. But
that's what I'm saying. But I mean, I think it's subtle enough where it's like open to interpretation. But it's they're recollecting the same duel at the same time during this moment in time. I think it's fascinating and really cool. But it's weird because you'd think Anakin would have remembered that he lost that fight. But like you said, he's like, "Oh, I'll get you," But.
Wait, no, but Anakin did the classic. What I liked about that fight was Anakin basically did the blocking of what Darth Vader would do at the end of that fight, which is get the upper hand and then stall and stand there and pontificate and then stand over his victim. And then maybe lose or something. Like Vader is just, I don't know, he just has to live in that victory. And obviously the lines from Obi-Wan are like, your need to prove yourself is your undoing. Like that is great dialogue from Obi-Wan in this episode.
Right. And then Obi-Wan defeats him without a lightsaber, or actually with his own, which is so this leads us to my second question. I'm sorry if you guys want to go through this linearly. We still have time. I want to get into weird stuff right away.
I got some weird stuff too, but go ahead.
I have a crazy scene I want to talk to you guys.
All right, we'll do it. We all called our shots.
There's a certain moment of this where I was like, you have all the elements here. Why wouldn't you do it like this? I was like, there's just one moment where I was like, why wouldn't Reva come in and basically slash Vader when he catches the transport? And then add all this tension where like Vader might get hit, and then have the Grand Inquisitor stop it or something. You know what I mean? Like have these crazy kind of like chain reactions. Like, I don't know. There's stuff that I think could have been more dramatic, but
Reva had terrible timing.
Yeah.
I was like,
She really missed
that. He was occupied for a minute there.
Yeah.
Literally the worst time in the
Grunting.
5-minute span to decide to do that.
To do that. Yeah.
When he's not focused
This
on
is the
anything.
only time where I was like, maybe strike now.
Maybe when he's holding the ship up. Yeah. Maybe when he's like walking to the ship.
Yeah,
anything.
that was the only
Yeah.
moment in the entire episode. I was like, wait, why not just right before that? Why not just do it then when he's holding the ship?
Yeah. Ben, what do you got? You had a question. What's your question?
Okay, so my question is, I forget because I sidetracked.
Oh no.
No, wait. You guys had moments though in the episode where you had
I
questions.
did.
Well,
It just distracted me, and it was such a good idea, and then
Oh, no.
forgot. Oh, this is it. I got it. Is that have we seen the last of Obi-Wan and Vader fighting? Does this
No,
qualify?
there's one more.
Could this be the last?
I
There's one more.
There's
I
one
feel
more
like they're-
physical confrontation. They share a space together in this final episode for the first 15 minutes. I'm guessing.
No, I kind of feel like it has to, but at the same time, they weirdly wrote themselves. It felt like into a bit of a corner at the end of this episode. If they are going back to Tatooine,
Yeah, he can't.
he can't go there. He can't. If he sets foot on Tatooine and they have a lightsaber duel on Tatooine, I may be done. Not really.
No, what if it's in
But,
space and like Obi-Wan spaces Vader or something? Like Obi-Wan gets like is the master and he's the learner. Like it
yeah.
just gets like I don't know, something quick.
Let me put some guardrails on this question a little bit. Does what they've written so far qualify as enough to be the last time they meet?
Yes, because this flashback I think created that dialogue for Vader, the learner.
Right.
I guess that's true, right? Because it's he is the last thing that he experienced in this timeline is being duped by Obi-Wan using the lesson he taught him. So
Yes.
so I guess you're right. So that would qualify. You're absolutely right. This would count. Yeah.
It crosses the finish line of like qualifying, really creating this nice fertile ground for A New Hope and all that stuff.
Right, which is sad for me because I do want them to clash sabers one more time, and I'm sure the writing's been this great so far. I'm sure they can find a way to do it.
Couldn't they do it on a starship with Obi-Wan like hooded or something?
Sure. I mean, there's enough they could. It's just weird because we know that Rava now knows that
It's Reva, everyone.
Reva.
We've used 3 different pronunciations tonight.
Is now onto the trail of Skywalker on Tatooine, which effectively removes Vader from the equation. You can't have Vader involved in this much at all at this point. Unless her plan is to go back to Vader to sell the information back to Vader, and then Obi-Wan has to try to stop. Like, here's the weird thing I thought about that. Like, I was watching it, and I'm like, okay, like 5 minutes before this show ended, I'm like, all right, how are we getting in episode 6? Because this plot's now done. Leia's going back to Alderaan. He's escaped. Everything. Reva's basically toast. Like, you could end the series here, and then when the rebel came back and said, and I'm blanking on his name, but now I'm going to mispronounce it, so I don't want to say any names.
Sorry, I didn't mean to shame you.
No, not because of anything you said, but because I just was like, I was doing it all throughout the episode. Is
it Roken?
Basically, Roken. Thank you. I was only going to mispronounce it. I just couldn't remember it straight out. But Roken comes back and says, Roken comes back and says, the hyperdrive's down and they're behind us. I'm like, oh, well, there's your episode 6. There's your episode 6 is that Obi-Wan has to do the plan that he originally was going to do, which is like, I'm out. You guys go. I'll distract them. I'll keep the Star Destroyer off of you. And I'm like, all right, there we go. There's your episode 6. It makes sense. You get another Vader thing. And then you have this weird, and I'm just going to straight up say weird because I don't particularly love this. I think it's going to go great. And I'm going to be like, oh, this is so great. I'm so glad they did this and it makes sense to me. But I was a little thrown by this Reva knows Luke is on Tatooine thing. It felt
spicy.
I cried when I saw the bail message for the first time. I thought it was so well done. Like, I fear for you and the girl. Like, I'll go check on the boy. Like, Owen will need my help. I was like, this is so endearing. Like this early rebellion and taking care of these kids.
Lots of good people.
Padme was a wonderful politician and someone who really helped the people. And I don't know. To me, it's like there's a real dedication to Padme Amidala, which is wonderful as well. I think that's what this show's a lot about. You know, it's like it's Obi-Wan's looking at Leia most of the time and really thinking about Padme, I think, and how she didn't deserve this.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Ben, I thought of you during that scene.
Oh yeah.
because he was doing the beard thing that you've always wanted him to do, which is what he does when he's watching Leia's hologram. He did the beard thing, wispy, the wispy cheek.
He did it a few times in this.
Dressing beard.
Yeah.
It's
I thought you were going to sound like
Guinness
Ben must
beard
be
posture.
so happy. Yeah.
He does.
I got teared up when she was do you trust me and I trust her. That line was great. That was such a great moment.
That was a really cool moment. I thought that was very. I mean, there's the criticism online about like how that like their relationships. There's a lot of overlap with sort of Mando and Grogu, and sort of like really trusting and the and protecting and like the lone wolf and cub sort of dynamic. And I think this is totally different. I think this is so evolved, and basically comments on how we can do a different version of the of grown up and coming of age for the kid, and like how we can do that together in a new interesting way. Like that's what I think this show does, and that's what I think that line's about in a lot of ways, which is I trust her. Like she can do it. She's 10, but she can still climb an event and save us and open this hangar. Get her up. Like
it's such a beautiful,
so endearing, so beautiful.
It is, and it's such a nice echo to like he spent his whole, Obi-Wan spent his whole life as a mentor, as raising a child, and use this. I don't know, to me feels like he's using the lessons he learned raising Anakin to deal with this child, and as much as he rejected it and hated himself for how poorly he did with Anakin, he's trying to be better. He's got another chance with this young person. He knows where she came from, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to try and be controlling this time.
Yeah,
I'm going to let her use the Force and follow the Force and be helpful.
That's a really, really good point that I didn't put together. I love this, and I wasn't questioning it, but that does add that extra layer that I love. And I think the other thing too is that the more I think about it, the way they're painting Leia in the series, which feels just like Leia, like it just feels like a natural part of her evolution or part of her growth, is that I think she has a lot more in common with Anakin than Luke does, right? Luke is just a whiny farm boy. That's really all we get. Leia is this brash, doesn't think about it, just acts, just does it. Like she's even a tinkerer in some ways more than Luke. Like she is little baby, little mini Anakin. And like, you're right. He's figuring out like, this is what I should have done with Anakin. I'm going to do this limited time I have with Leia. I'm going to do this right. I'm going to do it right this time, even if it's only for a few days.
Right. And in a lot of ways, she really is the chosen one. It's like, what if Anakin had a loving home and was not forced to become a Jedi?
Yeah.
And she is that in a lot of ways. And I think it's
so much is faded from this event as well. Like Leia's recollection of all of this is formative for naming her son, like all this kind of stuff that what is so show.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Anytime anyone ever now questions why did she name her son Ben, you just be like, well, there's 6 episodes of the show you should watch.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I totally didn't think about that. That's totally, because it is sort of odd. It's like you didn't even meet Ben, but it's like, oh yeah, that's wild.
No, and you see Leia's connection to the droid, like it's very similar to Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of connections, but also this episode. Can we talk about this episode sort of emulating Hoth and Crate and sieges across the Star Wars saga? Like, wow, so cool! Like, so cool to get that again, another emulation of the saga films. Just brilliantly done though, in a way that's kind of you. Well, I was thinking Jabim would be a raining planet. It's a dusty world, just like sandstorms and what looks like dust storms. Raging across the planet. Such a cool design.
Yeah, we finally got to see the outside of Jabin and see what's going on
for Jabim.
Yeah, it's a much smaller scale than
that's like we fly to Morai.
Yeah,
we jump to Kadump. Like, I don't know. It's like
it's great. I mean, also I know it's just building off of that was just like the Vader voice is just spot on this show. It is, it's so good.
It's not them we need to break. You're like, that line was like almost broke my sub. I was like, oh my god. Like, what's
also, I have to say, like, talking like epic lines, like the, you're not bringing me to him, I'm bringing him to you.
Yeah.
And like that to me that's such an Obi-Wan line and so good, and it's just such a nice take of like the Rorschach. I'm not stuck in here with you. You're all stuck in here with me. It's just like it's that line, but it's just like, but it's like delivered by Obi-Wan in such a great way. I mean, it doesn't really pan out, but it was such a great line.
Yeah, no, he kind of tricked Reva. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'll be in there waiting."
To you.
I was, thinking about that, the sort of siege of Jabin. Did any of you listen for the Imperial March when that was happening?
No,
I didn't. Was it? I didn't catch it.
No, Natalie Holt did her own variation.
Okay.
She used some of the notes, but she gave it to something, which is a choice, and it makes sense because it's not quite. It might feel out of place if it was that epic music for just like a squadron of soldiers in front of a small.
Yeah, a squadron for. Yeah, the music was great. Yeah, I'm kind of glad that she did that. More I think about it, because it would have felt really weird in, like you said, a squadron or of soldiers in what's clearly the volume. That scene felt the most volume-y scene I've seen in a long time in a Star Wars show, where I was just like, this does not feel grand or epic having all these stormtroopers. It felt very claustrophobic.
Yeah, it feels small scale at times.
Yeah, it did. That little moment did.
The budget feels a little limited compared to, I don't know, maybe like what we might see in Andor, which sounds like sweeping sets on.
Right. And still, though, I feel like as a Star Wars score composer, you've got a big like red button that just plays the Imperial March, and you're always just like, do I mash it now?
Do I hit it now? Do I hit it now?
Yeah.
Just an officer walking behind Vader, just playing the Imperial March.
Oh man.
The other thing about the show is we've talked about how you can go to all of the elements that we think are part of Star Wars, and one of those is the ensemble, right? We talk about the importance of having an ensemble, and this felt like the first show they were not going to have an ensemble, but they still built the ensemble. They still within the show. They found a way to build an ensemble around Obi-Wan, which I'm just like, oh, you did it again. You tricked me into it. Like the second Haja shows up again, S3 shows up again. I'm like, oh, you build.
What are you doing here?
Yes, you're building the ensemble. And I'm like, it's so great.
Wait, Kumail also is like basically interacting with the canon, like the actual connective tissue of the canon in Star Wars in this episode, where he like drops information. He basically drops the holo projector of Bail, like the holo transfer.
Yeah. And I love that it was broken and it was like a half message, but it was enough to sort of the Force to direct Reva to Tatooine.
Yeah. Turns out the revenge does wonders for the will to live.
Yeah. Which is wild. That's like
wild line.
I had kind of like, I think I was thinking about Reva when Ice Cube Jr. was delivering the line about like, oh, our hyperdrive's out and they're still on our tail. I kind of forgot about that. So if I could, I don't know, if I was going to guess, I guess we'd probably get a conflict with Vader ship to ship somehow in the starship in their version of the starship getaway in real space. And then we have a confrontation between Obi-Wan and Reva back on Tatooine.
Yeah.
Right. Because, I mean, Obi-Wan is only surprised by the Death Star. He's probably been on a Star Destroyer before.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Or at least, like, He's
probably fought. And, like, wouldn't you want to emulate then Return of the Jedi and fight among, like, across skywalks? And
that's what I was trying to figure out is if we're emulating the original trilogy now. Yeah. What are they going to take away from episode 6?
That would be great if he was like, I'll go face him while you get away. Like, you could go back to Star Destroyer.
Classic Obi.
It is. It's like, and then we're getting a hello there as he drops in on some stormtroopers.
Drops in front of Vader, just a few feet away, and just hello there.
Because I think we've got Full Metal Obi-Wan back. Like, with his powers, he shot Reva back about 50 feet.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
He's ready.
There are two things.
It crushed me when he saw the sabers in the container.
Yeah.
Yes. So I snapped a photo of that, and I'm gonna go through those sabers. I didn't get a chance to do it for this, but I'm gonna go through
on a YouTube video. Like, subscribe and follow.
All right.
Well,
so
every saber discussed.
So
Yeah.
since we talked about, we all had our own thing that we took away from this.
All right.
All right, follow me on this.
I'm going.
So there were more names in Orabash on the wall.
Yep.
Oh,
If you caught those.
You did. That.
Most of them are new names. One is, I'm just gonna get it in front of me, is Ragnada Ishmaren.
All right.
Okay, yeah. Old EU. It's old
Ooh.
EU. Now, this does two things I think is very interesting. One is she escaped the Jedi Purge. She's a Jedi initiate, escaped the Jedi Purge. Discovered though.
Disciple?
No, what's that?
She in Dark Disciple?
No, because that's Dark Disciple is actually still new canon. No, she was just only in one of the Jedi. Let me look it up real quick. She was in Children of the Jedi. But the big news is that she was found by Emperor Palpatine and made into one of the Hand of the Emperor, which, as we all know,
is Mara Jade.
Mara Jade becomes the Hand of the Emperor. So once again, we've established we're bringing in a character.
The Emperor Disney Plus series is that what you're confirming right now, Adam?
We're bringing in a character who was a Hand of the Emperor, right?
All right, the speculation's out of control.
The other thing that's fascinating is that she had a son named Irek, Irek.
Okay.
And there was in Old EU, because she was close to Palpatine and the hand of the Emperor, he was always rumored to be Palpatine's son and played it up. He wasn't, but he only played it up, but was a Jedi dark side user who was trained in the dark side from birth, basically. So he becomes a pretty big deal later
it's
on.
Very Dune. I like.
Yeah, it's very Dune to the point, and it gets even more Dune, which is weird because, as you all know, I'm working through the old EU.
Yes.
By the way, I finally finished the 19 books in the new Jedi Order series. The Yuuzhan Vong War is officially behind me as of 3 days ago.
How many shadow ports and moons do they mention in those books?
I mean, other than the one they drop on Chewbacca, not too many.
All right.
But what's interesting is I read this book where he ends up being like experimented on in the battles of Coruscant, and then when the Yuuzhan Vong, spoiler alert for a series that's no longer canon, takes over Coruscant, there's this whole book where there's just this rampaging mutant monster, like just wrecking shop all through Coruscant. And for most of the book, you're not sure who it is, and you think it might be Anakin Skywalker, a different Anakin,
a different Anakin Skywalker,
Han and Leia's kid. Anyway. But you get this big reveal that he's just this monster dark side user just wrecking shop like a Godzilla through Coruscant through the entire book. So like it was so funny to be like what are the odds that I would have read that book within like 3 weeks or 4 weeks of this thing coming out that references his mom in old EU. So it was just the whole thing. But bigger thing is Hand of the Emperor.
That's so cool because I think that's a fun show because isn't that character basically reluctant to do any of the dark kind of, missions or evil objectives? Yeah.
You make it the Americans. You just do an American the show The Americans in Star Wars, and Kerry Russell's character is the Hand of the Emperor.
But you also get Ian McDermott. You get a lot of Sheev in the show, right? Because he's like she's doing missions for him or if it's whoever it is doing it as the Hand, he's doing missions for Palpatine directly.
Yeah.
Cool show. Cool idea.
All right. That's my whole thing.
That's very cool.
That's awesome.
I just looked up on screenrant.com and they had a couple other names too.
Mm-hmm.
Jin Atlas and Corwin Shelvey.
Yeah. They said their first mentions, I think, on both of those on Wikipedia. So I don't think they're anyone.
Oh, okay. This is they're in Legends canon.
They might be. Wait, what's the names?
Corwin Shelvey and Jin Atlas, DJINN, and also there's a Tiberius, which could be Tiberius Anderlock. I'm not familiar with any of these characters, but shout out to Screen Rant for doing that. But also Screen Rant didn't recognize any of the lightsaber hilts, but I'm pretty sure the one that he picks up is I think it might be Quinlan Voss. I just
would make sense.
someone had posted lightsaber designs that they want Hasbro to make on Reddit last week, and I went through all the designs, and they're all pretty plain, and there a lot of those in the basket are pretty plain, and that one kind of looked similar. So I had to do a double tape because one looked like at first glance like Cal Kestis's lightsaber, but it could have been one of the incarnations you can create, but it wasn't. It wasn't the the first one, the iconic one.
We also need another weapon identified. What do they use to blast the door? What is that? Is that a web or is that something bigger? That's like a bigger artillery.
Bigger E-web, yeah.
E-web sort of cannon. That was a cool scene. That felt very like Two Towers, where they're like, it was a fun little siege moment where it was fun to see like them attack the blast door. But then Reva easily just Qui-Gon's the door, and I was like, oh, sweet. But before that, we get Force stethoscope like that moment, because I was like, there's no way he can hear her when they siege the encampment on Jabim. Reva and I guess like a battalion, I don't know, like a platoon of stormtroopers siege the small base, and they like Obi's like, I'll go negotiate, and then he puts his hand to the door and he's able to speak with Reva, but like that's a thick blast door. Like that's
and they're like whispering. I like that Force stethoscope. I think that's pretty.
Well, what was that?
Yeah.
How'd you guys read that? I was like, what is this?
I read like Force. You say stethoscope. I was gonna say Force glass against the door.
Yeah, exactly. It's glass against the door. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. That was cool. That was new. I just hadn't seen that before. So I thought, really, shout out to the writers and Deborah Chow and the whole team. Like, what a cool idea.
Yeah, really cool. And also, we finally, in that scene, we get the confirmation that that she was a Padawan.
Monologue. This is the monologue that I think Moses Ingram just steals the show, and Indira Varma with her monologue about what she had to do, what she went through. But this monologue from Reva, where she's like, they were the only family I knew, and he slaughtered them. Like, where were you when he was killing my friend? Like, the stuff was just whoa. It's like intense. Like, that's why there was a warning at the beginning of this episode. I was like, yeah, I think there needs to be a warning. I think this is very sort of current, disturbing sort of stuff that we were dealing with as a country, and now we're kind of like hearing in this show, and it's just the exact parallel. It's a complete overlap. It's disturbing, and it was tough. It was tough to hear that stuff, but like she delivered it so passionately, and just her performance, I think, it's just something for the record books.
It was so good. That was exactly. I'm so glad, and I hope if we do get her going to Tatooine, I hope the emotional payoff we get is what kind of I've been hinting at is less of like, oh, you didn't come and save me. You didn't help me. You're just sitting here watching his son, like the son of this monster, instead of coming to save us. This is unforgivable. Like, this might be her final descent to. Like, we might get her like Sith eyes in that moment where that just breaks her. Breaking news. Speaking of breaking, I'm ashamed of myself. I think I quit the podcast forever now. So I've been clicking on some of these other Jedi names that were on the wall. They are very, very deep cuts. I will not bore you. Some of them are in from role-playing magazines back in the 80s.
By all means,
I need other stuff. However, the one that I'm so ashamed of myself, and I almost don't want to admit it because no one would ever know it, but I got to admit it, is Tiberius, right? You had mentioned Tiberius, Ben. I Googled him, or Wikipedia'd him. It's Tiberius Anderlock, and he comes from Star Wars Galaxies, the video game I spent 100 hours, 100 years of my life playing. He was a non-playable character in the Jump to Lightspeed expansion pack, which is where you got all the ships and stuff. To be fair, what I'll say is I didn't play much of those missions. I mostly just hung around in my floating mausoleum in the stars. As one does. But come on, they name-checked a character from the game I talk about all the time, and I totally missed it. Anyway, so
pretty deep cut, Adam. We'll give you a pass. Yeah. Rad. Yeah, so that, and I think like that's a perfect amount of lore bombs for this show. It's like really, really like subtle, like, you know, not going to make you veer off course as you're watching the show. Whereas like if Quinlan Voss was standing there, it'd be like, well, what's, you know, like it would divert too much attention away from the story that they're trying to tell. Which
is what they did in the original trilogy, right? Like you just introduce little things, little moments, and
Easter eggs.
People can dig into it more if they want. Otherwise, it does not affect the story at all. Speaking of like things like not necessarily Easter eggs, but like the curse of like consuming all Star Wars media is that like my wife seemed somewhat surprised when the Grand Inquisitor came back alive, and I went, "Oh, finally, here we go!" Like,
thank goodness.
The internet was going nuts about it, and I heard some review who loved the show talked about the fact, well, you know, this is a person who does not consume Star Wars at the level we do, so I'm going to cut him some slack when I listened to it. It was hard for me to be like, well, actually, in my brain, which is like, he was just like, oh, well, it's good. So maybe they're treating the canon like different levels. I'm like, no, they're not. He's not dead. He's coming back. He's fine. Don't worry about it.
That was a moment where, well, it is kind of awkward that he just kind of like comes out of the woodwork. Like, again, it was like you could have done a scene where Reva attacks Vader while he's holding the first transport, and then he comes out, stops her from doing the slash, and he's like, you know, does his line about revenge does wonders for the will to live. Like, do that thing. Like, it would just be perfect at that point. But he kind of just comes out of nowhere. So, like, I don't blame general audience being like, wait, he's back. Like, I don't know. Like, that was the only thing I kind of bumped up against.
Well, it did seem like he may have been behind. You know, Vader's like, this is not surprising at all. I knew you were just out to get me, but, you know, your rage is useful, and now your rage is annoying, and now you're dead.
I don't see how you just didn't time that scene differently. Like that all could just still happen.
Sure
agreed.
They tried.
It also felt odd. I mean, I think because of where they're leading to in episode 6, but like the fact that she was just like, her whole story is like, you weren't there to help me. You weren't there to help me. And so that scene where he was like having flashback where Vader was just owning her. I was waiting for Obi-Wan to step out of the shadows, right, and save her that time. I kind of like that he didn't. Like, right? Like, I kind of like that.
That was extremely tough viewing when she gets stabbed by Vader.
Because you're expecting Obi-Wan to save her.
2 different decades. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
This is brutal. Like, this is a tough episode. Like, I don't know. I felt bad for Reva. I was like, wow, she's got, you know, he attacked her once, and then now again she's reliving the same trauma. Like, that was just that was tough.
I
was hoping she was gonna get a hit in on Vader. Like, I was hoping she was gonna make that contact, and like he'd be like, oh, and then like just I don't know.
No, she picked the exact wrong time. Like,
it was the bad.
Vader was like triggered.
He was
well.
It was like after he was enraged and wasn't using the Force on anything, and so he was just able to use full Force on whatever came at him.
But the other thing is, like, let's be honest. Like, she's not a Jedi, right? So she doesn't have the Jedi training, and she's not a Sith. She's dark side for sure. Like, this whole story is just like, I was talking with Carly about it. Just like, she's just like, oh, it's rough though, because she was doing all the things that were clearly done to her. And I'm like, because she's so single-mindedly about killing Anakin that she doesn't care selling her soul piece by piece. That's not part of it. Like, she's already on the path. She's already dark side at this point, but she's not a Sith, right? So she doesn't have, I don't think she taps into the rage at the same level that a Sith does, right? That a Vader or Palpatine
can. The eyes.
Not yet, right?
Right.
And so that's why I'm just like, second she didn't strike that blow. I'm like, I mean, also there's plot armor, right? You can't kill off Scott. You can't defeat Darth Vader, but it's just second that happened, you're just like, there's no hope. I was just sitting there going, well, she's just done. Like, this is like, it's just, how long is he going to toy with her? And by the way, that fight scene, they were able to give a new way of fighting to Vader in the show, which was all
Neo
Force.
From the Matrix?
Yes, all Force
Jiu-jitsu.
And it was great.
Yeah, it was
slow
amazing.
movements. It felt very true to Vader, right? Like, not fast.
It felt like Kylo Ren in using his fingers, the sort of like just using your hands and small hand gestures, just to like use the Force in these really miraculous ways. Like, really a lot of Force energy being projected from just little hand gestures. It was really cool, like a really cool choreography.
It was a new way to do it with him.
And I thought it echoed the way that Obi-Wan defeated young Anakin in that flashback scene, because like how he was ultimately defeated without a lightsaber and was just able to sort of outmaneuver him to get through. And so he was like, "Oh, I don't need a lightsaber either."
Yeah, it's like he didn't heed the teachings then, but I guess as he's fallen to the dark side, he's sort of like had this bitter obsession with
is he still learning from his master?
Yes.
Does he still like have things to learn?
Yeah, which again, that's why you get that. You get that perfect line in episode 4. It makes it weirdly makes even more sense now somehow by adding
like
this
perfect.
This is a weird way it adds. It's like I was, you were the master and I was but the learner.
Yes.
Right. Which is like, yeah, absolutely. After this episode, 100%.
And then Obi-Wan taught you well. You're not a Jedi yet. Like that is like he's like Luke's not a Jedi. He's like holding Luke back. He like won't let anyone be a Jedi around him or get a real master,
title
clearance. It's like not gonna happen.
The ultimate gatekeeper.
Yeah.
I love that we got a comic book Vader. Like, I mean, I know there's a lot, but Charles Soule will always be my favorite flavor of Vader. But I mean, him ripping a starship out of the sky and then just opening it like a can of sardines. With
it just kind of comes out of nowhere too. It's like he walks through a threshold and just does it, and you're like,
"Yep,
what?" Like you just
no
like, kind of
effort,
caught off
no
guard.
thought,
It's
just
perfect. You're like, "Whoa, okay, here we go." And I never thought they'd do that because I thought that was like almost too fan servicey for the sort of like maybe the fanboys who want to see the power creep, stuff like those people.
I don't know. Ever since episode 9, right? Like you have you have a tug of war with a ship about that size.
That's true. Yeah, that was a small transport, which is what I liked how restrained that was. It wasn't a large transport.
No, it wasn't Force Unleashed him pulling down Star Destroyers.
Yeah. Of course, like dork me was like, who was piloting the first starship?
Right?
Is it
Couldn't it just been a droid or like
another droid? They're just killing those loader droids off.
Oh man.
Okay.
Oh.
What about Chekhov's wrench?
Yeah, we didn't get it.
Ned B.
He had a blaster.
Yeah, which was cool. But I'm like, come on! I was expecting them when he got like hand to hand to like pull out the wrench and
throw a stormtrooper against like the cavern ceiling, which like
it was
I was into that moment.
Yeah.
It's like this is awesome.
We got like K2SO level death scene from that hauler droid.
Is that why it didn't affect me at all? Because I was like, yeah, it was better when it was K2SO. Like, I actually cry every time I see that scene. And this one, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's the silent droid that we kind of met for about 15 minutes 4 episodes ago. And now...
I don't know. It really touched me. I mean, obviously, Tala was dying at the same time.
Yeah, I was more upset with that.
But it was like, she was like, actions speak louder than words. And just the fact that he, like, protected her in her last moments, like that touched me a lot. The protecting touched me. The dying I didn't care about. And they died together, and it was like, I mean,
that was beautiful.
It was so intimate and like, I don't know.
Yeah, I love that. I love that the droid used its last moments to shield her. I was really touched by that.
Yeah, that was touching.
I will say that when Indira died, I didn't know if I was more upset for the character dying or for the fact that like the actor is now no longer able to play that character because she is so good. She is so good. She was so good in this show.
She made it count.
Yeah, she really did.
Yeah, that whole monologue about the Emperor said it was a roundup, and then she's like, "Do you hear the crime that like the Empire made up when they like basically accused that family and I guess persecuted them was that like they weren't paying their taxes?"
Yeah,
Oh.
I was like, and then she was like, and they lied, and like there were 4 families, like all Force sensitive, like 14 people. I was like, oh, that monologue just it was line after line was just got more devastating as it revealed more layers to just trauma she's been through.
But leads to a hopeful ending, right? Which is all about Star Wars, right? Where she's
the notches on the belt for everyone.
Yeah, and you can make it better. Like,
and yet another lesson for Obi-Wan, because she's like, yes, I made mistakes. I let this happen. I was a servant of this terrible atrocity.
Yeah.
Every day I'm trying to make up for it.
Yeah. But you can fight to make them better.
Yeah, it's such a great Star Wars line. It's a great Star Wars line.
Good line.
It's also just like, I mean, this is why you hire Ewan McGregor is you're getting character development through subtlety in just 6 episodes. And like just the line where he comes in to the room and Roken's just like, we'll get you out as soon as we get everyone else out. They've been waiting for months. And like Obi-Wan just looks around and he goes, I'll do whatever I can to help. Like that line is like, oh, he's a Jedi again. He is a Jedi again at this moment. Yeah.
He pulled the saber and just like defended everyone like a Jedi
Yeah.
would.
Just he held his own in that hallway. I mean, that was actually pretty impressive. But I think there's other signs that he's tapped back into the Force.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what gave him the insight into how to deal with Reva. You know, he was, when he was like, it had to have been the Force that was like, no, there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
And I can use this to help diffuse the situation. And it's just, but it's so subtle. It's like all subtext.
Yeah.
Just like, his progression and tapping back into the Force and becoming, Obi-Wan Kenobi again.
Yeah. It's just, the other thing that happened in the show that was there, but I think really important and maybe easy to kind of lose sight of is that like at some point he just hands over Leia to Haja, right?
No, he dumps Leia on Haja twice in this.
Right. but think about from this character,
she's your problem now.
Yeah. But that's a huge moment for this character's arc because everything he's done up to this moment has been Leia. I cannot leave her out of my sight. I cannot do anything. I cannot do anything because this is all I'm going to do. And then he realizes, yes, she's important and I need to get her there, but there's something bigger going on here too, right? Like he actually leaves her, and the whole plan is to leave her to just this guy to get her back to Alderaan. Like a person who smuggles humans, so he's really good at it. But like still, like that's a huge character.
Now
that's when he's full Jedi.
A real Jedi. It's not easy. This place is a good business opportunity, though.
Mm-hmm.
Haja is a great character.
They better not kill him.
To Kenobi's credit, Haja did have a very young child as a coworker at his previous grift.
Right. And
it makes all the sense in the world, but that's a huge moment for that character. He is now part of a Jedi, realizing there's a larger mission here, and there's more I need to do than just ferry this child. Like I know I can trust these other people, and that's huge. He's delegating again, which he hadn't done in this entire series.
Right. So probably in the next episode, Obi-Wan's going to be, can I see that transmitter? I got to tell him we're coming. And he's like, oops, I dropped it. And that's what's going to.
Yeah. He'll put he'll put two and two together and realize why he had such a bad feeling at the end of the episode.
Yeah. I wonder if he'll even complete the mission, if he'll let Haja take her back, or if and Obi-Wan will just jet to Tatooine or what.
So I'm guessing. Yeah.
Good.
I gotta think I gotta think Vader and Obi-Wan are gonna fight one last time, and I gotta think that Obi-Wan spaces Vader while he runs to grab a TIE fighter and escape.
Mm.
That's my
okay.
That's my hot speculation.
What's odd though is I like that, but don't you have to do that then, like mid-episode, and then he's got to get to Tatooine to confront Reva. I don't know why I keep
Reva. I like that one. That's a fourth pronunciation.
Yeah. Confront Reva on Tatooine. And it's just like, I don't know. I guess if you get her going like full like Sith eyes, like I'm just done. I've lost it with you, because maybe that's how you get like a more exciting, like jumpy lightsaber battle is with her than with Vader.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, your initial speculation that you made in the middle of our show was awesome. Like I love the idea of Reva taking her sort of like argument further with Obi-Wan and sort of learning what he's done and exposing him. Just an expose on just like, what do you think you're doing guarding one person when you're capable of guarding hundreds? And
also not only just guarding one person, also the child of this person. And what could hurt, and I can't hurt Vader, but what could I do that would hurt Vader worse? I could kill his son. So she's going to become the thing that she hates the most. That she's going to go after Luke and want to.
That makes perfect sense, because that's actually like a familiar formula I've seen in a lot of sort of I guess gangster films and things like that, where someone learns someone has a relative and they're like, let's take that person out. It's classic trope, and it definitely makes the character just it really. It's going to send her character into a new zone of a new frenzy that's going to be really, really captivating, I imagine.
Right.
And
But
possibly Sith eyes, possibly dark side. Possibly
I think so.
I love that. But don't you think Obi-Wan talks her down? Like,
think
I can't imagine Obi-Wan just straight killing her.
No, but I mean, we get that with Maul, right? So there's precedence for that he would do that as a last resort.
But that's Maul.
agree.
Maul wasn't a former youngling.
Yeah, no, I like that too. I think you're right. I think he wins the battle because he says there's more than one way to win than with weapons, right? And so I think that makes a ton of sense, Ben. That is the true victory, is that he talked her out of it. But like I don't know. Like, I guess
she still knows too much.
I guess she knows too much, but maybe if she like fully comes back to light and gets a redemption arc, like that would be something that's really meaningful to Obi-Wan. Yeah.
Right, because he can actually give her what he couldn't give Anakin, right?
Right.
Bring her back
to
light
to light.
and be like, it's never too late to choose the light.
Yeah, and then she goes off with Roken and Haja and everyone else to
follows the path.
Yeah, follows the path. Yeah,
because I did get the sense when she was looking at the path that there was like envy and dismay,
sadness,
and just like she's like, there was this other path, literally, that I could have taken.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, I like that. So I'll be happy with whatever give us, but I like the episode 6 that we're painting here. I could totally get behind this, and it makes me less care about Vader, to be honest.
Couldn't there be like a Robin Hood, or like a Three Musketeers, or like a Scarlet Pimpernel in the Dark Times, like a group of sort of like Jedi that fight for the path, like Swords of the Path or something? Like, it makes sense to me that like a few Jedi might linger around to protect these networks where people are having safe harbor for Force sensitives. It makes perfect sense.
And I mean, if we're learning anything from the way,
well, Fallen Order also kind of.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of a show, or in terms of like a single narrative, like it makes sense where if we're watching like the Marvel shows, like WandaVision, spoiler alerts, really cannot have a second season, but they spun off Agatha to have her own show. That might be where you go, where like, yes, we probably can't afford to or convince Ewan McGregor to come back every year to do another Obi-Wan. Maybe it's every few years we can get him back, but we can continue this world we've created with this ensemble we created, right? Like, maybe you do get a series spin off of this.
Where it's like the Reva's show on the
It's
path.
the Reva and the Roken and the Tala show. Like, it's the Path show. Yeah.
That would be pretty cool. I was actually my mind flitted to Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Fallen Order, the video game. I was like, well, this, the path could be a good central plot line.
I was just thinking if they did introduce, I think there was, it's hard to say, like, they definitely could have done this or should have, or what. I would never do that. It's more of just like, with a mention of Quinlan Vos, I think you could have had a moment just in passing with Quinlan Vos that then you could be like, who wants a Dark Time show with Quinlan Vos? And I think a lot of people would be game for that. And if it's super well written and it really explores the politics and dives into stuff like Andor, but he's a saber wielding sort of Jedi using the Force, it's a little more mysticism, more spiritualism, like the kind of Luke Skywalker, but Quinlan Vos. Like, there's a lot you could do with a Dark Time show with Quinlan Vos. So like, I was hopeful to see a Jedi like that, and I want to say there's time for that, but it's at the same time, it's like, this was Obi-Wan's moment to rise up and be a Jedi, and it was about him kind of and his progression, and to show another Jedi who's a full forged Jedi, running around, or easily able to tap into the Force and use their sabers. It's like that would take away from Obi's journey thus far. Yeah, so I totally understand. Yeah. The script is tight, and it's a perfect script for what it is. I was just like, maybe where they go in 6. I'm thinking like, and for spinoffs, usually you're going to see that in the final episode. You're going to see maybe a scene at the end, or something where all the rebels are together and there's someone in the background, and it's like, that's a show.
Yeah.
Well, or you get the if Ben's right, and they kind of like, it ends with Obi-Wan going to Tatooine and then the Path going to drop Leia off. Maybe they drop Leia off and they all look at each other like, now what are we going to do?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah. I hope they don't stick around on Alderaan for too long.
I don't know. Maybe we'll find out next spring.
Yeah, next spring. Oh,
I just go right to wild Psalm after
there's all these like great shows, but back to what you were saying, Grant, I would actually like a lazy show. The first episode of the Visions, the traveling swordsman that just sort of like through the dark times, Quinlan Voss just like trying to help people and like random vignettes, like, Zatoichi, like we
I
mentioned.
wonder if there could be like a Better Call Saul or like a more
Just want that.
gangster film. Like I think Solo wasn't like gangster enough, and like I think you could make a real sort of like, Godfather sort of gangster film, like a truly.
Yeah.
I don't know, Scorsese, like
Peaky Blinders.
Sort of
right
like
now.
thing. It's
Sure. I think there's room for it. I think there is. And I think there's room for both those things. And Ben, like, there's room and want for that type of show where it's like a traveling swordsman show, or as I always say, the Incredible Hulk, where it's just like, because what's happening right now in another franchise, which I will talk about momentarily for a second, which is Star Trek. They're kind of going through a similar thing as Star Wars. Like there's a lot going on in Star Trek. There's like 4 or 5.
You need to break down what's going on in Star Trek, because I'm utterly confused.
I'll say, because this is not Star Trek, but I will bring it back to why I think is there are like I think 5 separate Star Trek shows currently going on right now. Wow. So they've built
some of them are
own
interconnected
universe
as well, right? Like some of
they're
them
all like some are interconnected. They all it's similar. Like they take place in different times in the timeline, but it's all one timeline because they've forgotten all the JJ stuff. But oops. But the show that just premiered, and I've been kind of, and I like Star Trek a lot. Mm-hmm. I've been kind of lukewarm on some of these shows, and my complaint with these shows is that they're too like one plot over 12 episodes of a season. Where I'm like, to me, Star Trek is mission of the week. You do a mission, and then you have characters, and their characters build, but you have separate missions. And they just introduced a show called Strange New Worlds, which is the Enterprise before Kirk, because there's like before Captain Kirk. And I love this show, guys. This show is amazing because it's Star Trek as I remember it. And this is not me saying like the way it should be, but like it's what I personally, not saying what everyone else wants, but I personally have been craving.
How many episodes are there of this one?
Like so far?
Yeah.
5, I think.
Okay,
I think
I'm watching.
It's gonna be like 12.
It's gonna
because what it is the characters develop and you build plot with the interconnection of the characters, but every week is a different mission, right? And I'm like, I miss that from old school TV where you just have individual episodes that stand apart, overarching narrative with characters. So Ben, that's where you can get with something like that quote unquote lazy show, right? Where you get the traveling character.
Right. I mean, you'd still need to find like there are, we have to go back. I know we've talked about this, but the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek, but Star Wars obviously has its root in the hero's journey. But I think there's still ways to sort of tie in myth and do a sort of Star Trek like episode by episode thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I don't know. I'd still like to see it because
character can still build, right? Yeah. And it could be if it's an ensemble, the characters they create their own narrative story by the way they interact with each other, right? Yeah. And similar, almost how like Serenity did it too, right? Serenity, or you do like the X-Files where you have. Like most episodes are standalone, but a couple episodes a season are moving a larger plot forward as well.
Right. Yeah, there's room for it. I don't know. We'll see if there's enough volumes in the world. There's 5 somewhere. They might need 5 more before they have the bandwidth to do that.
I wouldn't mind just like an astrobiologist just exploring like a weird alien biome for like 35 minutes. Like I would just watch that show.
I would watch that show.
Guys, I'm just gonna say what I say every week. Dr. Aphra, it's gonna be Dr. Aphra show.
Yeah.
It's every episode is a different. You're doing a different exploration. You're doing a different mythical thing.
Sure.
Great.
I'd watch Orange County Choppers, but like in a starship hangar, where they just like making like customized ships for like various people in the galaxy. I would watch that show.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna get there.
So is just like it just comes through as like breaking up fights.
You don't know what you're doing, but it's like,
her droids are like army of droids going with her.
Oh man, an army. Yeah, it could be Petla and like an Athorian. Oh god. This was a chunky episode this week. There's been news also the past few weeks we've been sort of avoiding. I randomly stumbled across a quote from Taika Waititi about his new feature film, and he was saying. I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, I think I have to like go somewhere else. He's like, I just don't think that Lucasfilm wants me to give you the background for the plans to the Millennium Falcon or Chewbacca's grandmother. Those two parts were actually what he said, which is encouraging. It means he's going to break new ground, potentially out of the Skywalker timeline, which is pretty exciting. Also, I think it's a double
expand. He thinks to do anything like that is constrained by canon or what's the stories we know is just going to limit the galaxy, the size of the scope, right? And it makes perfect sense. Like go somewhere, like do a new thing, expand new characters, new story, new themes, new. Yeah, I love it. I think that guy we trust. I mean, he's delivered some of the best Marvel movies we've ever seen, and Star Wars. He can only do good work. So
I'm gonna say something that might be a little controversial, but I'm 2.5 beers deep. Let us not forget that's how the Mandalorian started, and that's disconnected.
It was just John and
new characters.
Dave
it was in the same universe.
Mando.
Yeah. And
drawing up Mando and Grogu,
and then it tied right back in.
And then it tied right back in because it got super popular, and they were able to get rights to the characters that they couldn't get before. Which is, to be frank, why. Although there's so many amazing moments in season 2 that I love, season 2 to me is far weaker than season 1 of Mando because it's just like and now this and look at this and this character's popping in now and this is happening.
Also like I think a lot of people love like sort of the lived-in ad hoc design of the language of Star Wars production design, and I think we'd love a pirate show as like a fandom, as a fan base.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And I think it'd be better to design a pirate character than Taika Waititi. And so like that'll be my kind of spec for like speculation for what that could be. Like if anyone's going to design a kind of like really fun swashbuckler character, it should be him. Like he's just his comedic talents, and then he can turn it into drama within seconds. And
he can.
He's a great writer.
He's so good.
Obviously, coming off making a pirate show called "This Our Flag Means Death," which is amazing, and you should go see
make
it.
that connection.
Just officially this week got greenlit for season 2.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So Pirates in Space. Pirates in Space from Taika would be amazing.
I have one more hot take on that. I think that was like a double fake. And you were absolutely getting Chewbacca's grandmother and the designs. It's going to be a smaller prequel.
Also,
get his grandmother, and we're going to get the designs for the Millennium Falcon.
It's going to be the prequel. It's going to be the prequel to Solo.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a far prequel. I think. If it's going to be Chewbacca's grandmother, it could be 300 years in the past. So
I'm on board. I will say Kathleen Kennedy did say in another interview, I think either during or right after Celebration, that all of these movies are taking place post the Skywalker saga, so post Episode 9. Yeah,
Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, that's what she said. But it was a weird quote where I don't know. Like
that's big news.
It's big news. I don't know if she's speaking specifically to something, but the way it was framed by the authors is that she said all the movies are forward in the timeline, moving the timeline forward. But I don't know about that. I would take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That would be an interesting like demarcation to make.
Yeah, which
especially since there's so much other media that's happening before.
Yeah, but then maybe that's why, right? Because there's so much. The real estate is so much more free after that, and that actually makes me, as a person who wants nothing more than to see a live action version of the Rogue Squadron novels, I'm more excited about the Rogue Squadron movie if it takes place after Episode 9, because that's great. That's unknown territory.
Right, they can still be fighting off the remnants of the Final Order and all that.
Yeah.
Well, you know who can arrive in an X-wing? Rey. That's right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
At any given moment. Yeah.
Any given moment, she can arrive in an X-wing.
Or Finn.
Yeah.
Or Poe. Yeah.
Any of them
could arrive on foot and just like wreck stormtroopers at any moment.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I just I'm actually at the end of The Last Airbender, and it's I love it so much. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
the show,
the show, the Nickelodeon cartoon.
I've watched it a long time ago. It's
the
metal benders are my.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's a geek culture black hole for me. I know I should, and it's on my list of things that Carly and I are going to watch. I just haven't.
This deep camera on my last shoot just went on and on about it, and I was like, I'm hopping in. Thanks, Adam. Is his name. But yeah, it's lit. It's great. But it gave me a lot of ideas. I was like, oh, this is like really sequel trilogy.
That's where Filoni came from. Is he worked on a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. His name's all over those. That was his beginning.
It's very Star Warsian too, in terms of like the powers and the connection to the spiritual world.
Yeah. Okay. We've now strayed far away from this. This was a fantastic episode. Next week, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to do something special for the finale of Obi-Wan. And it's going to be fantastic. I'm going to be sad to put this, close the book on
started.
Obi-Wan. I know, so good, but I'm glad we'll have this series forever. It's beautiful. Yeah. I can't wait to rewatch the whole thing.
Me too.
Yeah. Happy beeps, guys. Happy beeps.
Happy beeps.
Happy beeps.
We did get that, by the way. Is that just a random? Were you watching it on closed captioning?
Yes,
as well?
of course. Yes.
There was a closed captioning that said "Happy beeps."
So, really?
Yeah.
Oh, when she saves
when she's cured from
it said "Happy beeps."
Oh,
closed captioning. Yeah.
Even the sound design there, like really cute for droid chortling.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to us this week. Can't wait to talk to you again next week when we get this new episode. And as always, happy beeps.
This is Grex Kondak signing off. For the latest breaking news, follow @CoreWorldNews on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you and good night.
Remember, the Force will be with you always.